World War II. A deep dive into the hidden history. World War II was a monumental event in the history of the world, affecting nearly every nation on the planet and reshaping the political, economic, and social landscapes for generations. It was a war that involved massive military campaigns, but it also saw incredible feats of resilience, humanitarian efforts, and stories of human sacrifice that are often overlooked. While the history of the war is typically told through well-known battles, political leaders, and major events, there is much more beneath the surface. In this retelling of the war, we will explore not only the familiar history, but also the lesser-known aspects that played crucial roles and have left their mark on history. The Second World War didn't start with the invasion of Poland in 1939, or with the rise of Nazi Germany. The roots of the conflict can be traced back to the Treaty of Versailles, which concluded World War I in 1919. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including significant territorial losses, disarmament, and crippling reparations. This set the stage for political instability and resentment, particularly under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, who used these grievances to rally the German people. However, the war's origins were far more complex. One of the often overlooked causes of World War II was the rise of nationalism and imperialism in various parts of the world. In Japan, the military leaders sought to expand their empire across Asia, particularly in China. The invasion of Manchuria in 1931 and the brutal campaign in China during the 1930s were signs of the aggression that would later lead Japan into war with the United States and its allies. Yet, most people overlook how deeply rooted the concept of Japanese superiority and the drive for imperial expansion were embedded in their political and cultural ideologies. Meanwhile, in Italy, Benito Mussolini's fascist regime was also seeking to create a new Roman Empire. Italy's invasion of Ethiopia in 1935 and the subsequent League of Nations failure to prevent it showed the ineffectiveness of international diplomacy. Many countries, including the United States, had adopted isolationist policies, leaving room for these aggressive actions to go unchecked. The Blitzkrieg and the speed of war. When World War II broke out, the world was unprepared for the speed and scale of the warfare that would unfold. A new type of warfare, known as Blitzkrieg or lightning war, was introduced by Nazi Germany. This tactic involved a combination of fast-moving infantry, tanks, and aircraft, which overwhelmed enemy defenses and caused widespread confusion. What many people don't know is that Blitzkrieg was not a new invention but rather an evolution of older concepts. German military theorists such as Hans von Seeckt and Heinz Guderian had been experimenting with mechanized warfare long before the war started. The speed at which the Germans moved across Europe was unprecedented, and they took advantage of advances in communication technology, such as radio communication between tanks and infantry units, to coordinate attacks more efficiently than ever before. Blitzkrieg is often cited as a key reason for Germany's initial successes, particularly in Poland and France, where the German military was able to outmaneuver much larger and traditionally organized forces. But while the German Blitzkrieg might have been successful in the early years of the war, it also exposed the dangers of overextension. The rapid advance into Russia and the failure to capture Moscow in 1941 would be one of the most significant turning points in the war. The unseen cost, the human toll and resistance movements. World War II was not only a war fought on battlefields but also in the hearts and minds of ordinary people. Millions of civilians were caught in the crossfire, and it's often forgotten that the war led to one of the largest genocides in human history, the Holocaust. 6 million Jews, along with millions of Roma, disabled people, political dissidents, and others deemed undesirable by the Nazis, were systematically murdered. The Holocaust is widely recognized, but less known are the stories of the resistance movements that fought back against Nazi oppression in occupied territories. In countries like France, Poland, and Yugoslavia, underground networks of resistance fighters risked their lives to sabotage German operations, smuggle information, and save Jews from deportation to concentration camps. One lesser-known resistance effort was the White Rose Group in Nazi Germany, made up primarily of university students. They secretly distributed leaflets denouncing Hitler's regime, and members like Sophie Scholl became symbols of moral resistance. Their courage was profound, as they knew the price of their actions could be death, yet they persisted in their struggle for truth and justice. The War in the Pacific. The forgotten front. While Europe is often the focus of World War II narratives, the war in the Pacific was equally crucial, and in many ways just as brutal. The United States' involvement in the Pacific was spurred by the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. This attack, while a pivotal moment, often overshadows the many smaller, yet equally significant battles that occurred across the vast Pacific Ocean. One of the lesser-known campaigns is the Battle of the Aleutian Islands, which took place between 1942 and 1943. In an effort to expand their empire, the Japanese occupied several islands off the coast of Alaska, leading to a U.S. counteroffensive. The Aleutian Islands Campaign was one of the few battles of World War II fought on U.S. soil, and is often forgotten in the larger narrative of the Pacific War. The struggle in the Pacific also saw horrific battles such as Iwo Jima and Okinawa, where the human cost was extraordinary. The Battle of Okinawa, in particular, revealed the brutality of the Pacific theater, with both Japanese forces and American soldiers suffering enormous casualties. Many people are unaware of the psychological toll on American soldiers, who were dealing with the constant threat of death, and the emotional scars that would linger long after the war. The secret war, espionage and intelligence. Behind the military operations and major battles was another, more clandestine aspect of the war: espionage. Intelligence agencies on both sides of the conflict played a pivotal role in shaping the course of the war. The Allies' ability to crack German codes, for example, is one of the lesser-known but vital aspects of their victory. The British intelligence agency, MI6, along with the United States National Security Agency, NSA, successfully broke the Enigma code, used by the Germans to encrypt their military communications. This intelligence breakthrough allowed the Allies to anticipate German movements, saving countless lives and altering the trajectory of battles, such as the Battle of the Atlantic. On the other side, Nazi Germany had its own network of spies, including the infamous Abwehr organization. However, what many don't realize is that a significant number of German spies were also working as double agents for the Allies, providing critical information that helped to turn the tide of the war. One such individual was Richard Sorge, a German journalist and Soviet spy, who provided the Soviet Union with crucial information about Japan's intentions, influencing the Soviet decision not to engage in the Pacific until later in the war. The war's end beyond victory. As World War II came to a close in 1945, the Allied powers had to reckon with not just the political and military ramifications of the war, but the long-term consequences. The defeat of Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, and Fascist Italy did not mark the end of global conflict. Rather, it set the stage for new struggles. One of the most overlooked aspects of the post-war era was the question of what to do with the war criminals who had led these regimes. The Nuremberg Trials, held between 1945 and 1949, were groundbreaking in their effort to hold Nazi officials accountable for crimes against humanity. However, while many Nazi leaders were tried and sentenced, others managed to escape justice by fleeing to countries like Argentina, where they lived in hiding for decades. This phenomenon led to the creation of international laws governing war crimes, but also left the moral question of justice unresolved for years to come. Moreover, the geopolitical landscape that emerged after the war, with the rise of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, led directly to the Cold War. The division of Germany, symbolized by the Berlin Wall, was one of the most visible remnants of the war. But even as the world moved toward recovery and peace, the war had exposed deep divisions in human society that would persist long after the final shot was fired. World War II remains the defining event of the 20th century, and its legacy is still felt today. The war reshaped nations, altered borders, and changed the way humanity viewed conflict, peace, and justice. While the major battles, leaders, and decisions are well known, there are countless smaller, often forgotten stories that reveal the complexities and the human cost of this global conflict. From the sacrifices of resistance fighters to the psychological toll on soldiers and civilians, the lessons of World War II continue to echo across time. As we reflect on the war and its aftermath, it is essential to remember not only the well-known figures and events, but also the untold stories of bravery, suffering, and resilience that define this global struggle. By doing so, we honor the memory of those who lived through it, and ensure that the lessons of World War II are never forgotten.